Okay, so guys, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I think in Toronto, you guys are in noon there already. Nice to have you guys here today. It's an informational session, and interestingly, it's our first time here. So, the reason why we have a little bit of a snag in the beginning, but I think everything is sorted out. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also on YouTube. And we have the pleasure of having Varun Agrawal, Lakina, and then also Kuchi here online with us. LinkedIn Live. My name is Abiodun Oke, the founder of Serial Project Services, a training consulting and project services based here out of Winnipeg, Canada. I'm a supply chain management professional and also into project management. I have about 20 years experience in the industry until I decided that I was going to be more effective helping budding professionals in the industry, and this has been my journey. The past few years in Canada has been in the public sector, Manitoba Housing, University of Manitoba, and currently I'm also an instructor at the Red River College. Uh, you have to pay bills, right? So today we have a special session. It's an informational interview. Pretty much what it is we want more of our colleagues who are in the industry. So whenever I say industry, replace it with supply chain. Okay. We want more of our colleagues who are in the industry to make entry into the IT segment, where they are being paid more, they're being paid better, and they're actually being even recognized better than most of the jobs that we do in our supply chain. You put a lot of effort, yet you are not really compensated as much as it should be. So for this reason, we think it will be something very, very positive to go along this line of exploring the IT from even those tools that we've been using already. I mean, who can really do anything in supply chain without data? So I'm just trying to put it out there that if you're already in the supply chain profession, you're already using data, albeit maybe the very you know traditional data analytics, which is Excel, and for the most part it does a lot of our job, but the digital transformation of the industry actually means that we need to go beyond just Excel, and there are a lot of tools that are out there now. So we want to encourage our colleagues to explore career in the IT, specifically in data analytics, ERP systems, and some other type of tools that will help them to be more fulfilled in the supply chain career and the industry as a whole. So, having said that, today we have an opportunity to actually meet with some of our colleagues who are already in this profession. And if you are out there and you're wondering what is this thing even about, can I actually do it? Do I really have the skill set to be able to handle it? And what are the career opportunities that are available for anyone who pursues this? So these are the kind of questions we'll be asking them. And we also encourage you to ask questions as well. So you have an opportunity to actually type in your comment, ask questions, and all of those things while we are here. And then I will look out for those questions. Also, for those who are on the clubhouse, the same thing. I will look out for your questions, and then I will pass it on to the guests that we have here. So I will start with the introduction of our guests, including Gauthier. Gauthier is a co-host, but well, it's the first time for him also on LinkedIn Live here. So I'll start with Gauthier, and then Gauthier, I will hand it over to you to get Shekina and Varun to also introduce themselves, and we can start from there. Thank you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you, Abiodun. Welcome to Varun and welcome to Shekina and to the whole audience on the various platforms. This is the first time. I usually do this one on Clubhouse, and we had our faces, like Abilene was mentioning earlier when we were talking. It's interesting sometimes to see like the face and to read what people have on beyond the words. So my name is Gauthier Dukam Mbwende. I am a French speaker first. Shekina pointed out earlier, and so I'm from Cameroon. So I came in Canada about 10 years ago. My background, I have like a master degree in project management, a master's in economics, and I for certifications I have a PMP certification, supply chain management professional (SCMP), and a green belt Lean Six Sigma. So I found myself in supply chain as a large, I would say, kind of accidentally. So I was going full into project management, and then a lady saw a potential in me and brought me into her procurement team, and I spent 3 years there, and another 7 years in warehousing, distribution, transportation. And I recently went back into strategic sourcing, procurement, spend analysis, category management. So it had been like a nice journey. And with the new role that I have, um, crouching data, um, building reports, and kind of like providing insight to the leadership, it's an edge to have. So I'm really interested in learning from people who are doing data analysis on a day-to-day basis and try to link it with our supply chain profession to make a difference today. So I'll hand it over to Shekina, and I'm looking forward to this session.
Okay. Thanks, Gautier, and thanks, Abiodun. So I'll just follow the same format and just introduce myself a bit. But I'll start with what I do currently. So right now I'm a senior data analyst. I work at TD Bank, and yeah, essentially I do analytics on a day to day. I support the credit cards business, like within TD, and that's lots of different things from analysis for a new product launch to evaluating performance of existing products and a bunch of other things, which hopefully we'll get to talk about some more as we go along. In terms of my background, it's been a winding journey getting to data analytics in a sense. I started with undergraduate training as a chemical engineer, so I worked in engineering for a while. And I also have a master's in petroleum engineering, so I worked in the oil and gas business for a couple of years. But increasingly, my work was, I would say going towards data analytics day to day because I was working as a reservoir engineer and I was, building forecasting models and doing lots of analytics work, right? So, and that's something hopefully we'll get to talk about some more once we get into the meat of the session. Is just how data analytics, as opposed to a job role, is a function that entails working with data and getting insights from data and can be applied to multiple and different roles. So there's a huge intersection for many people's job roles with a lot of the techniques and kind of the tools used in data analytics, as a formal profession. So for me, it was more of the former, where I was working in a role where increasingly I was doing lots of analytics. And having been an engineer, of course, I had a decent foundation in statistics, but then I also learned, lots of other skills, and I was building these models. And a lot of our operations, a lot of the forecasting I was doing was around oil and gas operations and sales, right, for gas and oil. And so there was a huge supply chain component in the sense of predicting how some of our plants were working and all the supply chain components tied to that, all the way to building like an integrated model with which we forecasted what we were producing and what we were selling. This was while I was in Nigeria. And when I moved to Canada, I went to business school. I did the Master of Management Analytics program at the Rutman School of Management. So that was also very valuable in terms of the transition now of working in finance. Especially for that program, because like there was a huge technical component, but a lot of like the skills and tools and how we were learning data analytics essentially was really applied to business problems, which ultimately all of the analysis has to tie to, right? It's not just analytics for the sake of analytics, but it has to be tailored to answering a particular business problem. So I got that formal training as well, and ever since my program at Rotman, I've been working at TD, and it's been a great journey so far. So yeah, this long form introduction, but I look forward to having some more specific conversations around some of the things I've touched on so far. So I'll hand over to Varun for his introduction as well.
Thanks very much, Sakina. Thanks much, Gutir, and thanks, Abby, for arranging this session. And I will start with my introduction first. So, I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and then I have total 8 years of experience in supply chain management and procurement. Uh, Talking about my experience back in India, I worked 6 years in EPC projects. So we usually work with the government of India to execute some substation and transmission line projects, which was very aligned with my education and my interest in procurement. And initially, so my experience in data management is very vast, and I'm very tech savvy person. So I decided to work with the Oracle. So we implemented Oracle 2 years after I joined that company back in India. So my responsibility was to fetch the data in Excel sheet where we managing earlier, and migrate those all data, supplier data information in Oracle. So I worked very hard in to make our Oracle system as per our business policy, and because it is very customized product, and we can use that ERP system according to our policy, according to our business requirement. So yes, so I worked with the Oracle team to get that implemented as per requirement. We developed one more, like the new innovative software from the Oracle. So we started managing all our RFQ and RFQ process online and not through email, so that we manage our RFP and RFQ process transparently and more accurately, I would say. After 6 years of working in that company in TP Energy, I decided to pursue my master's in finance in Canada. So I moved here in 2019. I did my master's in finance because I was more interested to deep dive more into the commercial thing and learn more about the financial terms, uh, international finance, international business. So that leaded me to work in more into finance. After I graduate, I started working with PSA Halifax. It is a We manage the port, container port on behalf of Port of Halifax, and here my responsibility is to manage RFP and RFQ process from start to end, develop some strategy, cost saving opportunities, manage data, manage KPIs. So when I joined this company, we were not managing KPIs, and we were newly developed in procurement. So I started developing some automized some tools and linked with the Power BI to manage our KPI. So yeah, that was also a very interesting part because I used Excel sheet, and I migrated all data in Power BI so that we can see data in real time. We can also manage price for commodities in historical price of commodities through Power BI, how much we are going to save, how much our saving percentage in this month in particular category, because we manage procurement from different user departments. So we also need to manage how much we are spending in particular commodity, with particular department in particular month. So this all data we are managing right now through Power BI in real time. So yes, I'm looking forward to learn more about what questions you have, like the audience have, and I'm curious to have in this session and put some more insight so that it would help our fellow colleagues to grow more into this career.
Okay.
Nice. Oh, go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, thanks, Varun and Shakina. I've been, yeah, sorry, I've been here trying to fix the other issue related to the broadcast. I think the link we sent before got deactivated, so I'll try to share the new links. Just give me a second here. I have to see. Okay, yeah, okay. So I hope you guys can still hear us on the clubhouse. Sorry, I kind of stepped out for a second there. Yeah, so thanks, Varun, and thanks, Shekina, for the introduction. So, like many of us actually who are practicing supply chain today, we happened on it. For example, I haven't really gone to any class to learn supply chain. I came out of school and then I happened to get a job that is in supply chain. And then since that time, honestly, I fell in love with supply chain. I never looked back. I had mechanical engineering degree as well, and there were a lot of questions in the back of my mind about leaving engineering to look for supply chain, but I think those questions got answered when I dug deep and looking for questions to all my answers, and also talking to people who are already in the profession. And there and then I decided that this was gonna be it. I found it to be a perfect match for my personality. But my point here is that a lot of the times it's better to actually speak to somebody who has been doing this. In that way, it helps to clear or to give clarity as to what direction you need to go, how to pursue this career, if it's even worth it. Like, want to know, are you guys really fulfilled doing this? And I like the Shakina's introduction as well, because you mentioned that you also had mechanical engineering background or engineering background as really, and now you found yourself in data analytics, and I think there is a kind of a match there. A lot of people want to go into data analytics. They are always scared of oh, it's gonna be Python, it's gonna be this and programming, you know. So the thought of programming itself is enough to really discourage them to even move forward. So I think that's really where I want to start the question. So, okay, what kind of response do you have for these people? Who might think, oh, it's all about science, it's all about math, it's all about programming. I'm not built for that. I'll rather just go. I actually know somebody who has enrolled for the course and then totally abandoned it after paying all sort of money, and then it looked like, no, this is crazy. I'm not caught up for this, and the person just abandoned the whole thing. So what kind of response do you have for this type of people who are really looking to, they're also interested in the six-figure salary, but then it appeared that it's not that easy to kind of explore and start the career. So I'll leave it to you guys to help us with that answer, with that question.
Varun, do you want to go, or I can go first?
Yeah, okay, go shaking it and then after.
Okay. What I would say is, so I would have two responses for two groups of persons. So for people like ourselves that have an engineering background, I think my answer is slightly different, a bit less compassionate, I would say, because I think engineering kind of prepares you with the technical acumen to be able to learn the skills you need and the tools, right? Because fundamentally, like data analytics is, I like to think about it as a way of thinking about how to leverage data to get insights, right? So once you have those analytical skills, you have that structured way of thinking and problem solving, which an engineering program in part should impart. The programming is not the hard part, really. It's not like if you're an engineer and you're inclined to learning data analytics, you will learn that. With some practice, you will be fine. And again, there are different aspects of data analytics, and there are different career paths, which we might come to talk some more about down the line. But then, in terms of working in data analytics and supply chain, first, if you have domain knowledge in supply chain and you can learn the tools, which if you're an engineer, you should be able to, it's fine. Now, for people that don't have a very technical background or a background where they've done lots of, analytical work or don't have like a math or stats background, then it may be a bit trickier. But trickier in the sense that all these skills are totally learnable. And then there's a spectrum of like how technical work you're doing. Some people are data scientists, some people do more visualization with data that already exists, so it's already curated in a database. So there's a spectrum of different segments where you could add value to the entire value chain. I think it was Varun that was saying earlier how he helped the port authorities visualize and manage their KPIs, right? So you may not be a data engineer that's doing, connecting multiple data sources, streaming data, managing databases. You may just be the person that takes the data, looks at the business, and helps make that connection and drive insights, right? So it's a broad spectrum of things. Everyone has somewhere they fit if they're interested and if they're able to train themselves to have that analytical way of looking at data and trying to get insights that drive business bottom lines. And then for engineers, they should be they should be able to cope like with their background and learn some of the programming skills or whatnot that are required.
Yes, I think I also agree with Shekina, what he has mentioned about the background, educational background first. What it matters, like if you are engineering, then you have that mindset to do some analytics, and it would be little bit easy for them to cope up with the programming language. But if you are not having the background, but still, like if you're not having background, then also it is, if you have passion and interest, you can learn these languages. It is not a rocket science. But yes, I would say we should much concentrate about learning more about the ERP system like Oracle, SAP. Now we have Coupa as well. So I would recommend to learn more ERP system, because these systems are more accurate and more user friendly when you come to the profession and when you start working in supply chain or procurement domain. And I think that helped me to learn more about how I can integrate with data with from Excel sheet to Power BI, from ERP system to Power BI. So yes, it would help you, but I would say if you are, if you learn more about advanced Excel, Power BI, and ERP, that would be much helpful to success in procurement.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I'm just watching out for any question or anything of sort, but I don't think I have
So
any questions yet. Go ahead,
I
Agustin.
was going to ask Abby, to Varun, and to Shekina. Um, what would you say is kind of the training trend? You say, I know you mentioned Excel. It's probably not the Excel like cell one plus cell two equal X amount. It's probably more than that. So how deep should people think about Excel when you mention Excel? So my second question will be, um, you also refer to Power BI. So how long would that take to be like a basic entry level data analyst when, if we need to get trained on advanced Excel, Power BI, and maybe another ERP system?
Yes, I can go with that. So from my experience, I it depends about the business requirement. So first I learned about advanced Excel, and in advanced Excel I learned more about VLOOKUP, how to use VLOOKUP, how to shortcut keys to get the formulas, and data cleansing. So there is a part of data cleansing. So whenever we get the data from ERP or through API, we get the data in, like, because there are multiple user entering the data, and it might be the case that they don't follow the same format or the same same format while entering the data. So we might have some hiccups over there. So we need to cleanse the data before we see those datas in Power BI. Because if there is some data which is not captured by Power BI, it will show you error. So in data cleansing, we have to have advanced Excel knowledge. So if there are thousands of columns or thousands of rows, we are not gonna do one by one. So we should know about shortcuts and how to, like, the formulas, uh, like the conditional formatting. If this is the case, then the Excel should do this. So if and or conditional formatting, making some color formats for category wise, like if I'm procuring from engineering department, if I am procuring IT department requirement from IT, and if I am tackling from facility, so we can categorize those things as well. So I would say first we should more dive into advanced Excel, learning more advanced Excel, so that we at least we cleanse the data, and then we integrate those cleansed data with Power BI. And Power BI, there are many courses, and so particularly from my case, I learned Power BI from Udemy. So Udemy helped me to learn more about how should we integrate from Excel to Power BI, making different charts, like in which kind of information and which kind of chart we should use to have more user friendly and more readable or more analyzed from the audience. So these kind of tools help me to visualize my data, and particularly from the data I had from Port of Halifax or PS Halifax, that we need to look these kind of information. These are the KPIs, and this kind of information we would like to have in Power BI dashboard. So it also depends on business requirement, what data they want to see, and then we can search. Maybe like Google also helped me to learn more about the short keys from Excel. So uh, it is not the that we should learn first and then should start working on that. It is like the agile method. So we should learn and should start implementing vice versa. So it is like when we have business requirement, we should learn these things and should start implementing according to requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uh, I was watching Shakina shaking his head. Look like, yeah, he's in all agreement. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think I agree for the most part, right? The only thing I'll add would just be to re-echo his last point, where he said like you learn by doing, right? And I think that's really essential, like both to help people like have that confidence to start to apply for a role. Like you cannot wait to learn everything, and a good way to learn many times is by doing actual projects. So whether you have that job opportunity yet or you're just still learning on your own, try to like pick up actual problems. There are lots of there's an abundance of data sets, online. Just work with something. Try to think about, like, if I was the one answering this business question to help solve the problem, like, how would I approach it? What would I do? And then when you try it, you can look at what other people have done with similar data sets, and you keep learning that way. Because ultimately, you want to build your own acumen for data analysis, right? It's not just about learning a couple of tools. How do you do these clicks and that click? You need to be able to apply it to a project, apply it within a context, a supply chain, a business context. So I think I really agreed with that last point you made about, like, work on a project, start something, learn basic skills, and then start. Because in the end, it depends on what the organization you're working for has as their data stack or as their ERP system, right? So learning Excel is very good. It's a good start because it's a very flexible tool and all of that. But you may work in some contexts where your data is not in Excel, or you do your data manipulation in some other platforms. Like you guys are in cloud and you work with Databricks, or you have a SQL database, you have to pull your data from there. Like there are multiple formats like the actual job role will bring, but it's important to understand how to think about using data to solve the supply chain problems and using the data. And then with the tools, you can always like learn and, get that skill as you go along. Yeah, just to add that.
Okay, thanks, Shakina. Gucci, any you want me to go now?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, okay. So, now we understand that data analytics is really kind of a broad language for several things. Just like you mentioned there are different type of tools and stuff. But essentially, data analytics is really about problem solving. So when it comes to the variation of data analytics roles, I think I heard you mention something about data engineer earlier. So can you shed some light on the different roles and maybe the one that you think somebody who is already in supply chain, who is already applying some type of Excel, advanced Excel, can actually ease into, as a second part of that question. Yeah.
Um, okay, I'll share a few thoughts on that. So first, specifically to the data engineer role. So, so what data engineers are doing, right? So think about all what we've been talking about so far today: analytics, your ERP system, and all of that. So imagine a company that has multiple different platforms. So let's say you're a business. You have a store online and you sell merchandise. Now, let's say you have a mobile app, you have a web page, you have a payment system where people pay, obviously. You have your web page where people shop. You also have a mobile app. You have another platform where you manage your suppliers, so people that deliver items to your warehouses, people that sort, and people that also deliver. So you have all these multiple systems in your whole business value chain, right? At every of these nodes, data is generated, right? The data is of different kinds. It has different metrics. It's like different fields, and you're looking to integrate all of that data. So your data engineer will be the person that helps you get all your data. So they're helping you like integrate these different data sources, build pipelines that get all that data and stream it either into like one central place. You might have a database. If depending on the size of your operation, you might have a data lake where you're like, and like not to go into the details, but there are different configurations. But just the data engineer is helping you integrate all the sources into a curated zone, a curated place where the data is like you can be sure of the integrity of the data. It connects to the business relevance because sometimes some of the platforms, generate data in certain forms that may not be reader understandable. Your data analysts just see columns with numbers and they don't know what it is or weird names. So your data engineer is getting all that data and bringing it into one place. Some of the data is like data you need once a month. Like some is like live data, data when people make payments. So there's also streaming where they're making sure data is hitting the storage place at a certain with a certain periodicity. So in long form, short is to say the data engineer is integrating all these data sources, making sure the data is transformed into a form that makes sense to the business, curated and brought into that central place. Sometimes they're also working with certain metrics you want to see, right? So if it's sales in a certain form, different metrics that you build up depending on business requirements, they also do that. Now, a data analyst, for the most part, is looking at that data and helping draw business insights from that data, most times already in one central place, and do analysis that supports the business. So business has certain questions. What has our sales performance been so far, like looking back? And then you're checking, sales performance per month, per day, seasonality of sales, and you're trying to answer why is our sales going down? What can we do to improve it? There are lots of different questions. So the data analyst is working with data that's already in a certain format for the most part. Now, thinking about answering business questions, like a data scientist, for example, is focusing on building models that are able to either predict or tell why certain things have happened in the past. But whether it's predictive analytics or prescriptive analytics, but the data scientist is building models. So it's applying machine learning and artificial intelligence models to help you still answer some of those business questions. So in some companies, it depends. Like if you're in a startup, for example, you may be doing some data engineering work. If you have a small amount of data, it may be your job to get the data in the raw form from the ERP system and clean it up and then use it to build a dashboard. Like you might be at different points in this value chain. It really depends on how things are structured in the firm and how big or small it is. So, like how I like to think about it, just to circle back to the question, is there are different roles and different technical skills required for different things, but it really depends on what kind of problems are being solved and what the job roles entail. In some companies are still battling with digital transformation and digitization of their processes. Like, there's no value in those companies having a data scientist that's building complex machine learning models. Like, to answer what question? Like, where's the data you're going to train them on? Like, what's the relevance of that? So it really depends. It's on a case by case basis. But in terms of what role is easy to transition into, I would say data analyst role makes sense because a supply chain person understands the business processes, right? You're already working with data many times that's already in that form. You're working with your ERP system, you're, doing purchasing or whatever. You're already looking at your data in some way. You're just trying to get tools to structure how you work with data and formalize like your data analytics training. So I think a data analyst will be, in my opinion, for supply chain professionals, a natural fit to transition into. But that said, some people go all out, like learn more advanced skills, and pick any of the roles that interest them more. So that's my long answer to that question.
Yes, I think I also agree with Shekina on that, and I think I just would like to add collaboration environment is required between data engineer, data analysis, and if there are different teams, like the data team is different and the procurement team is different, integration or the collaboration should be required to like the effective communication between those members who is building this module for procurement. And because procurement professional or professional procurement individual is only able to tell them what we need and what kind of data or how he would like to showcase all data in the short form manner, so that if they present those data to top management, they should have all the answers ready and all the data ready to communicate further. So I think for that, effective communication between data engineer procurement is much required for to have successful build the dashboard.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. Yeah, because many times, like, you might have some KPIs, and the supply chain person may just be communicating, like, may need to explain the business processes to a data analyst. But the good thing is, if you have like skills as a supply chain professional, rather than just dwell on KPIs, you can start asking more probing questions, like, why are we seeing the KPIs move in certain directions, right? And try to explain. So, for example, before working at TD, I did some work at the Hudson's Bay. So, like, we have a huge what do you call it? A huge platform, e-commerce platform. That's the word I was looking for. We have a huge e-commerce platform, and the work I was doing was building a predictive model to predict calls to the call center. We're trying to optimize call center operations, right? Now, it's felt like, okay, we just need call center data. But in the end, we had to dabble into things like performance at the warehouses, because many times the calls to the call center were just a downstream manifestation of issues that were had at the warehouses. So if you are not able to meet your service level agreements at the warehouses, then that means many people's packages get delayed or lost, and down the line, people start calling and complaining, right? So a supply chain person will just know, oh, are we meeting the SLA or not at the call center, that is, right? But then you want to be able to go deeper, like with your data analytics skills, and look at the data in the whole organization and say, what are the things that could translate into this KPI not being that KPI? At that point, you're already now, doing analysis. So, like, the point I like stressing always is, it's great to be a data analyst or supply chain professional that thinks about things in terms of what does the business need solved. And once you're in that frame of mind, then you start looking at what tools do you need, what data should you be looking at. And we ended up, to solve the problem of calls to the call center, optimizing call center operations, we had to look at, like, how we can identify when there might be a surge of calls based on like service level agreements being met at the sorting and fulfillment centers. So just to add that example to say yes, what you're saying, like I agree totally, and just to add that once you go from the level of just being able to say this is what we need in the supply chain side, to say okay, from what you're giving us, like what is that telling us about the business, like why is this number, then you start channeling your data analytics um, appetite. I would say you start channeling it towards answering those questions. But yeah, thinking about it holistically and trying to ask the why behind the KPI you're seeing, I think is really critical.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, like I mentioned earlier, essentially it boils down to problem solving. Because the fancy tools, I mean, they are all out there. Like they are, we can start counting. The other day, I was speaking to another data analyst, and they told me they were migrating to snowflakes. I'm like, what's that again? You know? So, but at the end of the day, it's all really about what can you really solve in terms of problem, and it applies to anybody approaching data analytics as a career too. It has to be about problem solving and how you can apply even your own skill sets and even on a soft skills level in approaching the way you work as a data analyst. And I think it was Baron that mentioned collaboration earlier, which speaks to some of the things that Shekina also elaborated, because when we're in supply chain, we can't really do like supply chain is basically comprised of a lot of partners that are working together, hoping to be able to deliver some product or service to customer satisfaction. So essentially, there's really no way you'll be able to handle that effectively if there is no seamless exchange of data, and also even reporting of data that helps to inform maybe if you are doing well on a KPI, if you're addressing issues in a way that will achieve the customer's satisfaction. And even on the demand side of things as well, because as a supply chain, most of the things that we are trying to do in our operations has to achieve the end goal of fulfilling the customer's desire or customer's requirement. If we're not achieving it on that level, then there's also a problem. So essentially, this is about problem solving, is what I'm getting here, and about how to connect all this data and then trying to extract information that will help on key business decisions. It's really what I would like to really sum it up in terms of um, the importance of data analytics in our supply chains. So I would go back to Gucci. Let's see what question you have there for our guests.
Yeah, just before I jump into the question, I was listening to Varun and Shekina, and you mentioned Snowflakes, that new platform. So I always heard about Visio, but I never knew what Visio was. So I got involved in a project, like a SharePoint review project with my current company, and we have one of our kind of like I would say IT support person sending a business process flow and say, okay, this is the Visio. I said, okay, the Visio is nothing else than just a process map. So sometimes we are so afraid of the names, but all we need to do is to dive in and to be open minded, and we'll find ourselves very comfortable in that water and feel like a fish in that new set of water. So, very interesting learning journey so far. So, thank you very much again, Varun and Shekina. So, my question will probably go a bit further in your different contribution. So the field of data analytics, it evolves a lot. It changes very quickly. So how do you stay updated with the latest trend and advancement? And knowing that there's a lot out there, how do you pick and choose work best for your career and for your performance.
I can go first. So if we talk about my experience, it depends on, again, it depends on business requirement, what tools they are using, and how, like sometimes I worked with the company where we were using different tool, and headquarter in different country, they were using another tool. But after maybe 2 years or 3 years down the road, they are going to implement the same tools what headquarter is going to use. So it's the same case applies to this question, that if we know that we are going to implement some other ERP system like Oracle, SAP, Coupa, and anything in the market available in the market, we should start learning more about that tool. What are the tutorials available in the market? If there are any training program available on Udemy, so we can get acquainted with the simple business process, like how this flow of PO or PO equations works in that tool. So, and then we can think about how our business process will match with this tool, and how we could implement, and how we can optimize that tool as per our requirement. We When I started using Oracle, I haven't had any experience in Oracle earlier. So it was my initial years of my professional career in supply chain as well. So I was learning more about procurement and Oracle together. And I would say it took me 2 to 3 years to learn complete procurement process, complete business policy to implement in Oracle, because we had some troubleshooting around the process flow. As you mentioned, that process chart we should have to follow, and then we had some different things going on in the system. So it is all about learning more about the tool and learning more about the process, and to achieve at the same goal, that we have Oracle as per our policy and as per our business requirement, and it is giving us what we wanted, and the process is streamlined. Then we started Once we implemented that Oracle, we started exploring more areas in that tool, how we could it reduce our lead time in procurement process. So that tool was not working, not giving us what we wanted, we developed one more tool and integrated that with Oracle, so that we manage our procurement process through category. And so, as I have mentioned earlier, that we were managing our RFP process through email, and then we developed this tool to like we did data analysis, and we integrate all data in that tool, so that when we go for the RFP and RFQ process for a particular commodity, all data should be there, all information of suppliers out there in the market, it is already there. So once any new procurement guy is joining us, and he started to use that portal, he would not go with his colleague or some manager that to whom I should send this inquiry, and where I can find anything about the commodity, what are the technical specification, because it is already all predefined in that portal. So this is how we reduce our lead time in procurement process, and more effectively, because earlier we were about, and it is a human thing that we miss some suppliers floating that inquiry, because it might be many reasons that we are not communicating with them every day, or we didn't have any requirement of particular commodity for maybe past 1 or 2 years. But if we use this system, it already predefined in the system that this is a supplier what we used in past, and we can use this supplier. So yes, to the short, like I would say, we should learn and implement, and this helped me a lot to get the success implementing or developing successful tool, which improve efficiency of procurement process, and avoid the redoing work. So this what helped me to uh, and what I do is like I always when I used Oracle, it was on the app portal, not the cloud. Now, after a couple years, now Oracle is on cloud. So now I started learning more about how Oracle is working on cloud and how they are managing data. So this is how I learned, and there are many tutorials available in Oracle website. So it helped me to keep up to date with their different versions of ERP tool of procurement and upgrading my ideas and knowledge.
So just before I jump to Shekina, I just wanted to kind of drill a little bit into what you just said. So you mentioned Oracle, you mentioned data analysis, and you mentioned KPIs a couple of times. So if I may ask, like, what are the KPIs, the specific KPIs that the data delivered by Oracle, by the platform, have helped you to use to say, okay, our procurement went better. We have three or four of them that will give an idea to our audience to picture the linkage between like supply chain procurement and the data and the KPI performance.
Yes, so we had couple of KPIs we had to manage. Like there are general ones like the saving, how much did we save from the initial offer. Uh, we as since we were working on multiple projects, work we need to manage separate cost saving sheet for different projects, and the complete KPI is different for every projects. So if I talk about one, take an example for one project, we had to manage our saving. What is the project status right now? How much did we order? And we manage this like where are we standing at project, and we monitor this by placing the order. So how much order we released or how much amount of value did we release from the project value. So that gave us some rough idea on where are we standing in the project right now about the procurement process. Uh, we were also managing about the data on delivery, like the supply chain process. Where did we get this requirement, and on what day we release the PO, or on what date, which date we finalize this order. So that help us to manage our procurement efficiency, individual efficiency. That this is how much we took time to finalize the order. There are different values. Like it also depends on the commodity and the value of the commodity, volume of the commodity, and the timeline for procuring those commodity would be different. But yes, we started managing. We at least downsizing the this requirement or this timeline for releasing PO. Uh, Other than that, uh, I'm not sure what are the KPIs, but yes, we also had KPIs on supplier development. In in particular month, how many suppliers we developed, and how much we saved by developing those supplier from historical data, that we were procuring those commodity in this much price, but after developing this supplier, we are saving this much. So these are the
Okay.
examples of KPIs we able to manage after we implemented Oracle.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Shekina, over to you.
Um, I think the original question was what, like, how do you keep abreast, right, with
Yeah, how to
trends?
keep up. Yeah, how to keep up with all the changes happening in the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
must admit, is it's an industry where a lot is changing. Like things are constantly evolving, and you have to stay abreast. I'll just quickly, not to talk long, highlight three things I think I do. The one thing first, I think, will be like just learning from people around you, like your colleagues. So why I'm mentioning that is because, like, for many practitioners, like you work within an organization or you belong to some group. So like your first contact should be people around you that are like using tools that you may not be using on a current project. So for me, like with my colleagues, I always try to reach out and know what like people within the broader team are working on. And sometimes you just hear someone mention a new tool they're using or a new approach they're using to something, and then you try to learn and ask. So I think just being curious, just wanting to learn is the start, and then trying to get that from people around you is a good step. Another useful step would be, so for many of the tools, especially like the companies that, churn out these tools have like sessions, webinars, conferences, and I try to, and many, especially since COVID, are online. Recently, I know I attended the Databricks conference, and there they were literally showcasing lots of the cool new features, cool new things they've been working on their platform. So I think those are also really useful because many times you see adverts for these on LinkedIn. You can always just connect. So that would be the second for me. And the third is just like self-development training, right? I know Abiodun had mentioned at the start with Zero projects, they're having cohorts that are teaching data analytics. There's lots of so many platforms to learn. Udemy. Veron had mentioned earlier how he used some courses on Udemy. Same with me, Udemy, Coursera. So, like, once you're hungry to learn new tools, first you have to keep abreast with what's happening in the industry. So, conferences, seminars, webinars from organizations. Snowflake has like lots of conferences and webinars they do as well. So, listening to know what's new, what's fresh, what has changed. Learning from your colleagues because you're already in a certain ecosystem where there are people around you working with tools and you may not be doing all the projects they're doing. So, learning from that, second thing. And third thing, going for like self-development training with lots of the different platforms and organizations around us. So I think those three things are key because things are always changing, right? And you may be able to do the same thing, but there's a new tool that does it much faster. I mean, I know how many people like, and to the point earlier we mentioned about people that say they can't program, so they can't be data analysts. So many people just rely on ChatGPT these days. But the thing is, like, people need to understand like what they're trying to achieve. First, for some organizations, you don't have like you cannot connect and put data in ChatGPT for security reasons. But beyond that, even like just the structure of how do I go about writing the code to do this. But you need to know the this you're trying to do or trying to achieve before you can ask that kind of tool. Like, how should I structure trying to sort the data in this way? So that's why for me, like understanding like how to think about data and solve business problems is so fundamental because every day I'm seeing tools that are being churned out that make the technical side of things, the coding part, much easier, right? So in the next 5 years, 4 years, would it really matter like how fast you can write your SQL code, or that you know how the data is structured and you know how to think about combining multiple data sources, and then there's somewhere where you can go to get like the actual syntax. Like so, I just think being able to connect with these different things helps you, and just to add on top of that, that with many tools you're seeing these days, many times like even for building machine learning pipelines, there are many tools that just have drag and drop, right? So before you needed to learn a library, know how to write the exact Python syntax for using some of the libraries you use. sklearn, you need to know like all the different functions and you have within the library. But now, like you go to Dataiku and you have like drag and drop. You can build like lots of different pipelines, and you're just specifying, okay, run an XGBoost at this point with this data, and these are the variables you have, and the data is already prepared, and you're dragging and dropping and creating machine learning pipelines, and even going down to production. So just to say that always learn like what's happening in the industry, because some ways you're breaking your head to do certain things, like tools and techniques may have evolved, and those things are being done like so much easier, so much faster. And yeah, I strongly encourage and recommend constantly updating through the three ways I shared.
Okay, thanks guys for the responses related to the questions Gautier had asked earlier. I think we have some questions here, and maybe we can actually answer them already. There is one I have on the screen, and interestingly, there is one that is not showing up here, but I actually got it on the LinkedIn. And that's for Shekina. So, Baron, I just want to be sure this is what Okechukwu was asking. If you mentioned when you talk about the advanced Excel, like you said something about Power BI. Was that Power BI that you were referring to?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So I think we got it then. It's Power BI. So I think the second question, which is for Shakina, when you said more advanced skills, what do you mean? For someone who has a good knowledge of SQL, Power BI, Advanced Excel, and intermediate level of Google Sheet, what other skill will you advise the person to learn again? I'm interested in data analytics or data scientist roles in the pharmaceutical supply chain system. So, just so to I could ask the question directly. So, aside from Power BI, SQL, and Advanced Excel, what other skills will you advise somebody who is in expiring to explore data analytics to have?
Right. Okay, I'll just give a short answer to that. I don't know at what point they're referring to. Maybe it's when I was talking about the data scientist role,
Yeah,
because the person said they're also looking for data scientist roles. So, like, what I would add is like, and if you check online, you'll see lots of like supplementary requirements. But for a data scientist role, your programming skills need to be more advanced than that. So you need to be able to use Python well. You need to, beyond just that, you need to have the mathematical like knowledge for data science modeling, right? You need to be able to build machine learning models. So that is what I would say, like more advanced skills. Like in terms of the things you call, those are like tools, but definitely you need to have the right knowledge of statistics. So statistical methods, testing, causal analysis, being able to do causal inference. So like for example, you're aspiring to work in pharma. I know in a big section data analytics is applied to in pharma is just statistical testing around like new drugs or new interventions, right? So a huge area is like causal analysis, being able to tell this intervention, is that what is driving a certain outcome, especially when there are lots of conflicting and confounding variables and randomized test trials and things like that for drugs. You need to be able to understand the statistics and the math behind being able to do those kind of analysis. So those are more advanced skills. Also, a huge aspect of pharma is like supply chain. So like I was talking to a friend recently that does process mining for hospitals. So in terms of checking service delivery, in terms of how doctors are allocated to patients and the wait times and optimizing that vis-a-vis lots of different variables, like how much time does the person have, how urgent is this treatment that's needed, scheduling people, assigning staff, and hospital capacity. Like it's a huge like area with lots of applications. So when I say more advanced skills, on the one hand, you can think about tools, which would just be like make sure your programming is top notch. But really, it's really about the underlying modeling skills, the underlying math and statistics knowledge, and supply chain analytics knowledge, which would be like operations research type skills and being able to build like machine learning models. Um, just a final point on that answer as well. So like when I worked at the Bay, what we were doing, for example, we're building time series models to predict call volumes to a call center. Now that sounds like, okay, call volumes to a call center, like, but it's not straightforward at all. Like
yeah,
1 million things could be driving it, and you're doing modeling with different methods, right? Like statistical methods where you're building like Serimac models or Serimax models with exogenous variables, or you're using like tools that already like standardized like Facebook Profit. But not just that, being able to understand when you do a test or build a model, like statistically, your conclusions, do they make sense? And so there's lots of other skills, but it's nothing so exotic, right? You're building on top of
yeah,
knowledge. And like something Varun said earlier, most times it's like you're building layers and layers of knowledge. So it's like you start doing one thing and then you need to answer this question and then you add it on top of it and then you build those skills. But a lot of those skills require some formal training,
yeah.
which is very available. So yeah.
Yeah, I have to jump in on the comment you made there that when people really are thinking about data analytics skills, it appears that the first thing on their mind is the tools,
Yeah.
which are totally different sets of, you know, variables in terms of data analytics career. Fine, you need to know these tools, but there are some underlying business processes Um, there are also some underlying um, data manipulation skills that goes beyond just, oh, I can use this tool. Like there are some, like you were talking about the causality and all of those things
Yeah.
earlier, like all this even the machine learning um statistical methods, like all these regressions, linear regressions, and all of these things. Having a knowledge and also how this really is being implemented in this tool, I believe, is one of those things that people really need to draw more towards than, oh, I can use Power BI.
Yeah.
Yeah, every other person that learns Power BI will be able to use it. But do you really understand the underlying the business processes, the logic, actually, the business logic also behind all of these things to be able to copy to become a better problem solver, rather than just somebody who, I mean, somebody who has an hammer who doesn't have the skills of a mason or a carpenter would probably use it for something totally not adding any value to the business. But if you have the skill of a mason, the skills of a carpenter, and you have the hammer, or you have even some more advanced tools, then you become a better carpenter in that sense. Just trying to use that analogy. I don't want to jump in.
Yes, yes, Abby, I totally agree with you. And I wanted to share the same thing that before we jump into learning more new tools, we should identify the opportunity to investigate what are the business requirement and what they want, what the business goal is that is not have been achieved by advanced Excel or Power BI or
Yeah.
any tools they are using. And then we could jump into learning more tools to learn how we could achieve that target or goal learning these tools, so we can have both educational and the practical knowledge in the progressing way, that okay, now I need to achieve this goal that would not be achieved by, or that would be less efficient if I go with Power BI and going through a XYZ software. That would help him to learn what are the bottlenecks are there, and what he wants to achieve by learning this new tool. So, and that would value more value in the business process.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, Abiodun, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, I guess I'm always on mute. So I wanted to ask, like Kochi, you want to ask a question now, and maybe we ask just like the last set of questions, and then we can ask the audience if they have any questions. Although I've been asking here in the back end to see if there are any questions other than the ones that we have so far, and then we can just ask the final set of questions so we can start rounding up.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So I'll ask a question about the data privacy and ethics. So we know it's those two themes are getting like more kind of attention. So how does it factor into your work? How much challenge um, thinking about the privacy and the ethics around the data do you feel on a day-to-day basis?
Right.
I'm probably gonna start by with Shekina with the credit card and all those.
Yeah. Yeah. I can jump in there. Yeah, I think it's a great question to ask in this forum. Like, data governance, data privacy is a huge, huge, huge issue. And it's one that is in my everyday life, particularly because of like my current, like the work I do, like working at the bank. Like, that's a big, big, big issue for multiple reasons. Data privacy first, like, it's really important because first, because there are just lots of our lives are now like digitized, right? So everything from not just like your financial transactions, but even things about your personal life. Just think about how much of everything that's important to you and like how you function as a human that's like on some digital platform or the other, right? Like your phone these days is almost an extension of you. So whether it's like the kind of information you're looking for online or like transacting like financial things, your banking information, your personal information, your mortgage, your house, like almost everything you do, you're doing on some platform that generates some digital form of information, right? And so that your digital personality or that your digital persona is so important and has to be protected because there are all sorts of impacts, right? So as what pertains data analysis, not to stray too much, I think one of the important topics would be just how do people handle data? And that's kind of an organizational conversation, but it's also something that should be top of mind for even data analytics and supply chain practitioners. Like, do we follow the protocols, the data governance rules and regulations around how we handle data, especially personal identifiable data, like PII data to individuals? So that's data that individuals could be identified by either directly or in proxy. So because there's so many breaches, there's a lot of cybersecurity issues, there's a lot of evil things happen to organizations and to individuals due to data loss. So that's like a really huge area. In fact, increasingly there are lots of roles and jobs I've been seeing lately around like data governance practitioners. So many data analysts may not be doing day-to-day analysis, but their job is just looking at the organization's data, looking at the framework with which an organization manages data, uses data, and making sure that it's safe and making sure that it's in compliance with regulations and it's in the best interest of the company and of users, clients, or end users. So it's really a huge area, and it's also vast. There are lots of different areas. Like my mind is just all over the place in terms of even what to talk about specifically. But if there's a specific question I could address, but there's lots of things like, what rules, who can access data, what can they do with it, what kind of decisions can you make with data? So for example, even at the bank, there's some data that the bank may have, and there may be regulations that prevent the bank from using that kind of data, right? So the users, individuals have to be protected so that the data is safe, is used to the right ethical ends, and there's a monitoring and governance system that makes sure that individual actors cannot misuse people's information. So that's really important. Now, on the more technical side of things, there are interesting ideas like data masking, right? How do you take data that is PII data and then mask it such that the data can still be used for analysis, but without having that individual identifiable traits, right? There's things around combining multiple data sources so that like you cannot trace one particular data set to a particular person. There's averaging where you should rather work with some kind of data at an aggregate level so that like you can come to the same conclusions, but without exposing or putting at risk certain individuals. There's lots of things, right? It's really, really broad, but it's something that every data analyst and aspiring data analytics practitioner should have top of mind. And the last thing, just to mention in 30 seconds, will be also the kind of decisions and outcomes that come out of data. So I know when I was in business school, we did a course that was around responsible AI. So just like with the whole buzz with AI helping you on your decisions, what kind of decisions are the models we're building driving? Like, are there inherent biases in those outcomes? And some of those biases could be just from the data it was trained on, or could be some implicit things that we don't even see, and some downstream implications of using this new amazing technology, right? So like it's a really broad area, but something that's really important. But the framework to think about it is just who can access what data and what can they do with it, and what framework is managing how we use what data and to what ends. So the who can access, the what is being used for, and what data about people should be accessible to organizations and should they be able to use.
Yeah, so thanks so much. I want to quickly jump in before we go to Varun. So there was a point we were talking about data masking.
Yeah.
Is this same thing as data encryption?
Yes, broadly speaking, but sometimes encryption is more like, so you have data in a certain form and you're like scrambling the data so that like for the data to be used, it has to be reverse engineered
Yeah,
back to a certain form.
yeah,
Sometimes masking may just be, okay, there's a column or two columns that have name and postcode,
okay,
right, of people, like, and you want to like not show those columns. Sometimes it's, you may work with credit cards and there's a credit card number, but you don't want to use the number, so you have, another form of like an ID, a customer ID or an account ID that's a derivative of the actual number, but
Mhm.
is a unique number not nonetheless, but is not the actual card number. So someone couldn't take that ID and identify the owner of the
The
card,
part
or
of
it's masked in a way. In some cases, the encryption is just like the whole data is encrypted, and you cannot use parts of it on like you cannot use it in that form unless
yeah.
you decrypt it.
Okay.
But sometimes masking could just take the form of you're converting certain columns, you're removing certain columns, or you're
Okay.
combining the data to aggregate it. And yeah, but yeah, that's a good comment. There are different forms that protecting data, different techniques and approaches.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Over to Baron.
Yes, I think I'm agree with him, and I am not sure if I can more add into it, because we have different team who manage data privacy and security, and so I am not much involved in those kind of process right now.
So what do you say about the place of a data analyst and the place of a cybersecurity analyst? Are there any type of overlap in this case? Now that we're talking about these type of things.
Yes, I think we have. So we have different portals where we should log in before, and that those credentials are very much defined within the procurement team only, so that we no any other department can see or edit the data. So we follow those type of practices to avoid and to secure data from the procurement, because prices and the data from data of
Yes, I see.
suppliers are very crucial. So we had to be very diligent on those data. So that's why we managed to have those login credentials within the team only, so that other department have restrictions to access those data. But yes, we have different team who manage cybersecurity and who help us to achieve these data security as well. But yeah, I can say they are portal managing through some different portal. It is overlapping with cybersecurity as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, Gucci, you have a follow-up question, or that is it?
Yes, my follow-up question will come from the chat. So we have Olubuni, that's Olubunmi, who is asking, what are the key strategies for ensuring data privacy and security when implementing data analytics solution in today's rapidly evolving cyber threat landscape?
Yeah, I believe some of those questions were answered by Shakina already. Like
Definitely.
the masking, the encryption, and maybe there are others out there, that specifically speaks to strategy. I know there is multi-factor authentication, right? And I mean, there are a lot of other very interesting way that even I can see it on my own end. There's also biometrics. Like you have to use your biometrics to be able to access some type of data, and if it doesn't match your biometrics, then you can't have access to that. But I don't know what that is. If that is part of cybersecurity strategies, or maybe it's, just regular kind of means of ensuring data privacy. So, Shikina, do you have anything to add to that, or you're good?
I think looking at the chat, maybe that question came before the cyber.
Yeah, I think it's what as you were talking about it, that's when
Yeah.
this question came
Oh,
up.
interesting. Well, I think we touched like most of like the things. I mean, for the purpose of this conversation, obviously, like we cannot exhaust that question really, and there are more people that are more competent to address like a deeper question there.
Yeah,
I think just where there's a huge overlap is just cybersecurity and data governance or data privacy. It's like with cybersecurity, you're trying to control access of unwanted people to data in many cases. This is not all it is, but in many cases that is the case. And same thing with like data privacy. Like there's like two conflicting, I would say, objectives, right? You're within an organization, you want people to have like a holistic view when they're solving problems with data, but at the same time, you don't want access to just be unfettered, right? So on the one hand, I want my analysts to be able to combine multiple data within the organization and give me really profound insights. So I don't want them to be in silos in that sense. But then there's a privacy risk, and there's a risk of like, should I grant people access to data they don't really need? So it's like kind of conflicting in a sense. But having the right governance structure, data governance structure within an organization, I think is the solution to this. Because like, it's not that, for example, at the bank, like people don't have access to combining data as an analyst, but there are procedures, there are strict, well um, structured rules around what data you can access, and there are teams that are responsible for making sure you're only accessing data that you have to access, and you're only using it for the purposes to which they are allowed to be used. So really, the thing is, um, like if someone's credit card information gets leaked, like lots of bad things could happen. And then you're in the realm of cybersecurity where can someone that shouldn't have access to some data have access, and what can they do with it? But then internally as well, there's also the part of like, are you using data for the right reasons, even within the same organization? So I just think, just to cap up, is really broad. There are overlaps, but think about in terms of access and the framework around which people can access data and what they can do with it. And there are multiple strategies. We've talked about many, not to repeat, and you can check online for even more things to look at.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think I have a final question here. Before we will try to see if we can get people to respond to a survey. I've checked a couple of times on the clubhouse if there are questions. I don't think I see any questions there. So um, I will go for my own questions here, which says, um, for individuals interested in making a career transition into data analytics, what steps would you recommend they take?
You want to go ahead? Okay, so I would suggest to learn more about from colleagues and in the from the market. So there are different groups in supply chain, right? And there uh, he or she can learn more about what are the opportunities in data analysis, then analytics in supply chain. And from my perspective, I think it should be essential skills we should have as a procurement professional, because it helps us to grow more and to it would help us in many areas, like the if we go with the negotiation skills, we should have data in on our hand, so we could be more efficient where we go negotiating with suppliers, collaborating with internal and external stakeholders, preparing PO contracts in the system. So I think these are the essential skills which we should have, and the great source of this is like learning more about from the on the job itself, and we can learn. There are different platforms, different sources, training programs going on, like through webinar, seminar, Udemy. So I think these are the platforms which he or should can be learn from for to learn more about data analytics and how we can use those skills in on day-to-day life or as a procurement. My main goal is to how I can optimize the business process, supply chain process, and to achieve our KPIs and goals. So yes, these are the different platforms, and yes, as we mentioned earlier, that after COVID, we have very good access on those webinars and seminars going on in the market and in the group. So I think we should take this opportunity to learn how other colleagues or how other businesses are using those skills to achieve their goals.
Okay, over to you, section.
Um, Yes, I think those are really, I really connect with those points. Those are really strong points, and I totally recommending that. Recommend that. Sorry. The other thing I would add is start from where you are. So for many people, they're trying to transition, but they're already maybe not transition, but they're trying to do more supply chain analytics work or data analytics for supply chain, and they're already working in a core or traditional supply chain role. I would say in those roles, you're seeing lots of data, right? So you could start trying to apply some of the data analytics tools you're learning to solving and improving the processes, which Varun did mention. So, for example, I was speaking with someone recently that was trying to make a transition, I think, from a business analyst role to a data analyst role within her organization. And it turned out, like, after we had discussed, there was a team that was doing a report for her team, like from their work, they prepare a weekly report, and like it was really easy for her to just approach that other team and say, you guys do like a Tableau report and you pull data from this database. Could you give me access? And can I like work with you guys when you're doing that task? And they were happy to get an extra hand, right? So she was combining what she was doing and also giving support there. So I always say, like, just look around, look where you are, and try and look for opportunities to start using the tools you have already. If you work in supply chain already, you're already in a data intensive environment. Like there's lots of data all around you. So start seeing ways you can look at the KPIs, try and understand the trends within those KPIs. If there's some reporting that's happening in an ad hoc fashion, try and standardize and automate those reports. Start doing things that help you practice within what you're doing and then transition from there. The other quick point will be like, it doesn't hurt to get formal training, right? It doesn't hurt to do a course somewhere, like let people that are working in that space tell you what's required and walk you through, learning at least the core and basic skills. And with those skills, you can now do your own personal projects and you can always grow from there. So, start where you are and then also look for formal or pseudo formal training to support like your journey as well. I think those are the big ones for me. I would say, the certification. There's some other things, but for me, the big things is like look for a way to start getting your hands dirty, and starting where you are is like seems like a logical first step for me.
All done. Awesome. Thank you. I think, yeah, that's a very great way to have a look at this. For anyone, like I said, I came into supply chain, like it's not something I'd gone to school to do, and here today I teach. I'm a professor at the college where I teach supply chain management, and I could really tell you that it's all about being curious and getting all the information that I could. There'll be several information from different platforms. From sometimes I actually feel like that also gets in the way. We're in this era where you have technology all over the place, and then you want to learn about something new, and there are 10 different sources, and then in between you are really lost because there's really no guide or some type of um, what I would call a structure, that actually provide like a kind of very structured schedule of what's supposed to be done, on a regular basis, leading you to that goal. So I think the same thing is happening, with a lot of people. Like when I do remember a lot of our colleagues want to get certified, CSCP, certified supply chain professionals. And of course, you can go and do your online thing, like your learning management system, and there's actually an expiry date on it, and life happens. Let's just put it that way. And before you know it, the 1 year is gone, and then you have to pay all over again. So, and essentially, a lot of people also have what they have to do. They have to go to work. They have to earn. They have to pay the bills and all that. So these things get in the way, regardless of all the tools that you have access to. And next week we'll actually be talking about our professional development. It'd be a way for me to segue into that. So we're going to be talking about all the different professional development schedules that we have for the fall. Data analytics is going to be one of those courses that we have curated. We have also been engaging resources. Shakina happens to be one of those that will be leading this session. So we would highly encourage those who are really curious and interested to make inquiries about how they can get on this session with us. It covers all of the different tools, but beyond tools, we're also going to provide a business context also around why are we using these tools and all the business logic behind all of these tools. We're also going to have the CSCP, though I'm not supposed to make the announcement now, but we have a big partnership that has really been finalized now. But we're going to be making the announcement soon with ASCM. So the Sierra project is going to be able to offer everything that you can normally get on the ASCM platform, the exams, the training, the courses, everything. We're going to be able to provide those, and then we're relying, of course, on the resource base that we have in our supply Jobs Canada platform to be able to deliver that. So if you're already in our platform, you are interested in teaching, you're interested in training, so this will be a time to get on board and also help with the delivery of these ASCM courses that we have on the ASCM platform. And we're also going to be having a project management cohort. We have one going on currently. So the next one will be in October. This will be the fourth one. We have the third one currently ongoing, and I think that I'm leaving one out, the SAP. So SAP material management, end user training, and consulting training. Those are also scheduled for the fall. So we have a lot of stuff on our schedule for the fall. If any of this is something that will be of interest to you, then we recommend that you reach out. Um, so I'm going to send a short survey for those who are interested in participating in this so that we can get some of your feedback on this session. This is our first one on LinkedIn Live. We had a little bit of a snag in the beginning, just like every other thing that starts in the beginning is kind of somehow. So you got my point. So please bear with us. We'll hope to be having more sessions here. We do Clubhouse regularly. If you want to join us on Clubhouse, that is also available. We are currently actually on Clubhouse here, but what we would say is um, maybe next week we'll probably have something on Clubhouse, but we'll see how that works out. So, but for now, I'd like to share the survey for those who have listened to us on the guest here today to provide their feedback. And if there's any way we can also improve on the session, please let us know. So I want to thank Baron Shakina for joining us today, and Gautier, thanks for the co-host. I think you've been changing your clothing for some time. I think it's second one, eh? Or is it the only one? Maybe I've not been seeing the lower part of it all this time. Anyways,
I
so
think it's the same one.
oh, it's the same one. Okay, I was seeing only the black part. Okay, really want to appreciate you guys for coming to join us on this sessions. It's really been a pleasure. I've also learned a lot today from both of you guys. I want to appreciate you for that. I will pass it over to Gautier, and then we can close the session for today.
Awesome, awesome. So I don't know if Varun and Shakina have access to the comment section. If you can copy and paste your LinkedIn address, that would be awesome for our audience. That will help them maybe to further connect out and learn more about data analytics. I mean, it's always good to have a mentor, someone who is in the field and who you can turn to and ask questions. So, and I've also learned a lot. I'm actually wondering what I'm doing in the pure like supply chain buyer role. Maybe I should pivot like yesterday. into data analytics and make the six figure. So it's never too late. Thank you again very much, and for the different sources of learning, and for um, making us look at it as it's easier than we think it is in our brain. So we're looking forward to more, either workshops or webinars, and I might be part of your student, Shekina, coming in end of September.
Glad to have you.
That's all for
Oh,
Thanks very much for having us. It was a
oh,
pleasure to meeting you all.
okay. Thanks so much, Varun. Thanks, Varun, for providing the supply chain and procurement perspective as well. Really appreciate that. Okay, then, and that'll be it
Welcome.
for us today, guys. Really appreciate it, and have a great
Thank you,
weekend out
everyone.
there.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Yeah, this was
Bye.
nice. Thanks, Veron. I learned a lot from your sharing.
Same here. Yeah.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Okay.